Welcome back to Crime Documentary Files. Today we will dive into a case that shocked not only the student community, but also made the entire nation of Bangladesh reconsider the importance of freedom of speech and the pressures that students face. Our main character is Abrar Fahad, born on February 12, 1998, in the peaceful village of Radhanagar, located in the Kushtia district of Bangladesh. He was the son of Barkat Ullah, a bank employee at Brak Bank, and Rokeya Khatun, a homemaker who devoted her entire time to caring for the family and raising the children. From a young age, Abrar stood out. He was intelligent, calm, and well-liked by everyone around him. He began his educational journey at Kushtia Primary School, then continued at Zilla Kushtia High School, where Abrar excelled in his high school graduation exams with impressive results. He was the kind of student that any parent would dream of, hardworking, humble, and full of passion. After graduation, Abrar was accepted into some of the top educational institutions in Bangladesh, such as Dhaka University and Dhaka Medical College, where his mother had hoped he would study to become a doctor, in line with the family's traditional dream. However, Abrar had a different dream, a dream to build something meaningful. He wanted to become an engineer. He wanted to create useful things, innovate technology, and contribute to society in his own way. As a result, he chose the Bangladesh University of Engineering and Technology, BUET, over the medical path. At BUET, Abrar was not only an outstanding student academically, but also someone who lived fully in every moment. He joined BUET's Energy Club, where his passion for electrical engineering combined with his love for people, interacting, learning, and creating value for the community. Those who met Abrar often described him as a bright soul, someone who brought light and positivity wherever he went. Abrar wasn't just a bookworm. He truly loved what he studied, and his passion was evident in every little detail, from the way his eyes lit up when discussing electronics to his eagerness to help friends study for exams. For him, electrical engineering wasn't just a subject, it was part of his identity. He wasn't just a top student, he was always ready to support his friends. But what earned Abrar respect was not just his intellect, but also his awareness of the world around him. He cared deeply about the state of his country, social injustices, and political issues. Without hiding his opinions, Abrar frequently shared his thoughts on his personal Facebook in a calm, persuasive manner, without any intention to incite. He believed in the right to express one's views, a right that, ironically, would cost him his life. Since joining BUET, Abrar lived away from home in room 1011 of the Sher Bangla Hall dormitory. It was a small, simple room, but it held countless memories, laughter, and the dreams of his youth. Despite being away, Abrar never forgot his family. He frequently visited his parents, called, texted, and stayed in touch as if distance had never been a barrier. Just 10 days before the fateful night, he had returned home, planning to stay until October 20th. However, with exams approaching, Abrar decided to return early to focus on studying. No one could have predicted that this early return to the dorm, simply to prepare for his exams, would lead him straight into the trap of his killers, who wore the faces of fellow students. It all began with a Facebook post. While studying, Abrar came across news about a recent bilateral agreement signed between Bangladesh and India during the official visit of Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. As a young person with independent thoughts and a sense of responsibility to his country, Abrar disagreed with some terms of the agreements. Like many other students, he decided to express his thoughts on social media, a calm, reasoned post based on logic and the perspective of a citizen with a constructive spirit. Abrar discussed the Mangla port, which Bangladesh had rushed to operate during a past famine, now being handed over to India, despite India previously refusing to help Bangladesh access the Kolkata port. He mentioned the water-sharing dispute between Karnataka and Tamil Nadu, highlighting the injustice over resource distribution. And finally, he raised the question: why did Bangladesh agree to export LPG to India when India had previously restricted the export of its resources to protect its domestic needs? This wasn't a sensational or propagandistic post. It was shared within a circle of friends, like thousands of other student discussions every day. But for Abrar, that post would become his death sentence. The post quickly caught the attention of Bangladesh Chhatra League, BCL, the student organization affiliated with the ruling Awami League. On campuses across Bangladesh, the name BCL invokes fear. This organization, founded in 1948 by former President Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, has long been notorious for its violent actions, threats, and abuse of power. It had been banned in the past, and even labeled a terrorist organization by some opposition groups, but it continued to exist, like a shadow in every dormitory. On October 4th, just 2 days before the tragedy occurred, Mehedi Hassan Robin, the BCL secretary at BUET, issued an order in their internal chat group. "We need to teach Abrar a lesson." They waited for the perfect moment, right after he returned from his family break and was focused on his studies. This chilling detail was only discovered during the investigation when a group member, Ifti Mosharraf Shakal, confessed to the entire plan. And then, that night came. October 6th. Abrar was alone in his room when they arrived. They dragged him to room 2011. He had his laptop and 2 phones with him, all of which were immediately confiscated. Mehedi Hassan Robin and his associates began searching through the data on his personal devices, looking for conversations or posts that expressed his views, as if those could justify what they were about to do. The first slap came down hard. Robin struck Abrar repeatedly across the face as a display of power. But slapping alone wasn't enough. Abrar Fahad, a fellow student, stepped forward and returned with a cricket bat. In just a few minutes, that bat became a tool of torture. Ifti Mosharraf Shakal took it and began beating Abrar mercilessly on his face, arms, legs, and torso until the bat broke in 2 from the force of the blows. But the beating didn't stop. Despite being beaten to a pulp, Abrar still refused to cooperate. He didn't provide any of the information they demanded, and his unyielding silence only fueled their rage further. Anik Sarker, the Secretary of Research and Information for BCL-BUET, entered. As a 4th-year mechanical engineering student, Anik should have been guiding his juniors, but instead, he brought another cricket bat and resumed beating Abrar as though it were a game. The strikes were aimed directly at his knees and soles of his feet, some of the most painful and vulnerable areas, capable of causing severe injury. Meftahul Islam Zion, the Secretary of Sports for BCL, also joined in. He slapped Abrar and hit his legs with the bat without mercy. Throughout all of this, Mehedi Hassan Robin remained calm, casually calling Russell Mehedi Hassan, the Secretary General of BCL BUET, as though he were reporting the progress of a mission. By around 10:30 p.m., Abrar collapsed from exhaustion and pain. Ifti Mosharraf tried slapping him to wake him up, while Mujahidur Rahman used a jump rope to strike Abrar's body as a new form of torture. There was a heartbreaking moment when Abrar weakly regained consciousness, trembling, trying to stand, only to be beaten once again. Ifti continued striking his knees, each hit sharp and relentless. They slapped, beat, and humiliated him, like soulless machines. Around 11 p.m., Anik returned. This time, he struck Abrar's already broken body without hesitation. Finally, the group left him alone in the room, unconscious, his body bruised and motionless. The only humane act was Ifti placing 2 small pillows under his head, but that late sympathy couldn't save him. Abrar began vomiting uncontrollably and choked on it. No one came to his aid. He thought he had survived, but the nightmare was far from over. After everything, perhaps Abrar thought it was finally over. His body was trembling, motionless, but perhaps somewhere in his delirium, he hoped the horrific torture had ended. But no, the demons returned. This time, they didn't leave him lying in room 2011. They dragged him, pulling him by his arms and legs like an inanimate object, and took him to room 2005, where another round of torture began. Here, they continued to interrogate him. They wanted him to confess. Confess to what? A Facebook post? A personal opinion? A quiet but sharp line of poetry? But for them, as long as he showed any resistance to their authority, paying the price was inevitable. Amit Sarker, another leader of BCL, coldly suggested they continue beating him until he spoke. And so, the torture began again. The strikes continued to rain down on Abrar's already broken body. Each blow felt like it was tearing apart his blood vessels, his joints. But this time, things were different. Abrar's condition started to deteriorate visibly. His breathing became shallow. His body went limp, with no strength left to resist. The attackers, now in a panic, began to whisper among themselves. Amid, one of the assailants worriedly suggested they move him out of the dormitory to avoid being discovered. But before doing anything, they bent down to check his breathing, his pulse, to see if the victim was still alive. Mehedi and Anik looked at Abrar and reassured themselves that he was fine, and then abandoned him once again. But Abrar's body could no longer endure. He continued vomiting, and his pulse grew weaker. Then, Mehedi became even more frantic. He suggested calling the police, not out of remorse, but to cover up their crimes. Some students were sent to carry Abrar downstairs and lay him on a bare mattress with no bed sheets. Meanwhile, chaos began to spread inside the BUET dormitory, not from innocent people, but from the perpetrators themselves. They didn't know what to do. Tasir al-Jami, who was assigned to monitor Abrar's condition, realized the situation was critical and rushed to call IFTI for help. But instead of telling him to call an ambulance immediately, IFTI, showing an absurd level of cruelty, told him to massage his body, as if a few massages could save a life after hours of brutal torture. Others joined in, panicked and clueless, attempting to massage him, pour water on him, and shake him awake. Finally, after much hesitation, one of them agreed to call an ambulance. Tamim, another student, was sent to find a doctor from the BUET medical center to buy time. But it was too late. At this point, Abrar's body was shutting down. His breathing grew weaker, then stopped altogether. His heart stopped beating. When the police arrived, around 3 a.m. on October 7th, they found Abrar Fahad's lifeless body lying cold in the Sher Bangla Hall dormitory lobby. He was no longer breathing, no longer moving. The night shift doctor, Dr. Muhammad Mashuk Alahi, confirmed Abrar was dead. But as soon as the investigators saw his body, they knew this was not an accident. His body told the whole story, from the bruises to the deep wounds covering his body. This was clearly a case of brutal torture. It didn't take long for them to take action. They seized all the security camera footage from the dormitory. And what they found sent shivers down everyone's spine. In one video, several students who had already been identified can be seen dragging Abrar by his arms and legs down the hallway, as if they were dragging a lifeless body. But what was even more merciless was at 3 a.m. The camera captured Professor Mizanur Rahman, the director of the Student Welfare Council at BUET, calmly talking to the very suspects, right next to Abrar's body. After a few minutes, he turned and walked away, as if nothing had happened. The next day, investigators called Professor Mizanur Rahman in for questioning. His response infuriated everyone. "I didn't know anything. I was only informed about the incident the following morning." But the video clearly showed. He was there, at the scene, at that very moment. When the investigation team attempted to contact the victim's family, they hit a dead end. Abrar had no phone, no laptop. Every device used to communicate had been seized by the perpetrators. Eventually, they found a student named Diganta, who had tutored Abrar's younger brother. Through Diganta, the police were able to contact Abrar's younger brother, a boy named Abrar Fahad. The call connected, and then the brutal truth, the storm, struck the Fayaz family. Abrar was dead. As news of Abrar's death began to leak out from the Sher Bangla Hall dormitory and spread throughout the BUET campus, a wave of shock began to rise. It spread quickly like a wildfire through a forest. Every student knew something very serious had happened. Then fingers began to point in one direction: Bangladesh Chhatra League, also known as BCL. Almost everyone knew, or at least guessed part of the truth. But when asked, nearly all remained silent. Fear loomed large. BCL was an organization that students had long learned to avoid, a suffocating silence, like a noose around the entire student body. They knew, if they spoke up, they could be next. But some couldn't remain silent. A small group of students from the 2017 batch, friends and classmates of Abrar, stood up. They knew they were risking everything, but that no longer mattered. They quietly drafted a message, exposing the incident, naming the perpetrators, and detailing their actions. Then, they posted the message to all the Facebook groups related to BUET. They sent it to the BUET Alumni Association. Each line, each piece of evidence, each name, was shared from one hand to another, from one screen to another. Before long, the news spread beyond the campus gates. It moved to other universities. It spread across the city of Dhaka. Then, it reached all of Bangladesh. And then the world. A new detail began to emerge, stunning and confusing everyone. It was BCL who called the police. After everything they had done, after Abrar had breathed his last, they were the ones who voluntarily reported the incident to the authorities. So why would a notorious political organization, one that feared investigation, hand over evidence willingly? The answer, as the investigation progressed, sent chills down everyone's spine. From the beginning, the plan wasn't to torture a student, it was to stage a drama. They intended to label Abrar as a shibir, a slang term used to describe members of Jamaat-e-Islami, a student organization banned for being deemed treasonous. Mehedi Hassan Robin, the leader of the group, called the police, saying, "We've captured a shibir element, come take him away." A patrol unit was immediately sent to Sher Bangla Hall, but when the police arrived, they were stopped. No one would let them in. It wasn't because Abrar was still alive, it was because he was already dead, and the smear campaign could no longer proceed. A question arose in the student community and society at large. Was this a political conflict, or was it a foolish act of revenge over a Facebook post? What could drive a group of students to be so cruel as to kill someone just because of differing opinions? Abrar's friends didn't wait for the government to act. They began investigating themselves. Every message, every conversation, every timeline was pieced together like a brutal puzzle. And then they discovered what everyone had sensed. Abrar's final post was the reason for everything. It was a short, gentle post, but with sharp edges. A keen analysis of the new agreements signed between Bangladesh and India, where Abrar pointed out the injustices, the losses, and the wounded pride of the nation. He didn't incite or insult anyone. He was simply a young citizen daring to ask questions. At the end of the post, he quoted a verse. "For others, I gave my whole life. Where is happiness when you forget yourself?" It was a post with nothing wrong in it, but for those who could not tolerate dissent, it was enough to warrant murder. Once the motive became clear, the entire country seemed to awaken. Students, faculty, social activists, and even ordinary citizens took to the streets. They could no longer remain silent. Protests erupted everywhere. In Dhaka, hundreds gathered at the Jahangirnagar Anti-Terrorism Memorial. Students and professors stood hand in hand, forming a long chain across the campus, demanding the death penalty for those who killed Abrar. In Kushtia, Abrar's hometown, university students blocked the main highway, along with their professors, calling for justice for their fallen brother. It wasn't just the youth. Artists, celebrities, producers, and writers like Prince Mahmood, Mustafa Sarwar Farooqi, Masum Reza, Chayanika Chowdhury, Konal, also spoke out. Posts flooded social media. Everyone shared the same emotions: anger, pain, and an unwavering commitment to seek justice. Then, the whole world spoke out. Western embassies officially condemned the act. Amnesty International called it a horrific crime that must be urgently investigated. But for many, this wasn't just a murder. It was a direct blow to free speech, to the heart of the fledgling democracy of a developing nation. Under the immense pressure of public opinion, BUET could no longer remain silent. They announced a series of measures, a complete ban on all political activities on campus. On paper, this had been a rule all along. but it had never been strictly enforced. They expelled 19 students, permanently banning those involved. They promised to cover all legal expenses for Abrar's family, provide financial compensation, and commit to reforming the school environment, adding more security cameras, opening anonymous reporting channels, and establishing clear feedback processes for students. But the public wasn't easily swayed by promises. They wanted justice, not just administration. Finally, after more than 2 years of relentless efforts by Abrar's family, friends, and the people of Bangladesh, justice finally entered the courtroom. On December 8, 2021, the trial of those responsible for Abrar Fahad's death came to a close with a shocking verdict. 20 people were sentenced to death, and 5 others received life sentences. This was no longer just a student murder case. It had become a symbol. A clear message from the court. This was a premeditated crime, an act of organized murder, and a brutal testament to the corruption of power when it falls into the hands of the heartless. All the evidence presented in court was irrefutable. From witness testimonies and CCTV footage to forensic analysis, every detail painted an unmistakable picture. Abrar had been tortured to death by those who were supposed to be his peers. The names sentenced to death were not strangers. They were the top leaders of BUET Chhatra League, the student wing of the ruling political party. Mehedi Hassan Robin, Anik Sarker, Iftikhar Musharraf, Sohail, and several others. Meanwhile, the 5 individuals who received life sentences were found to be involved but did not directly participate in the fatal acts of violence. But the harsh truth is, not everyone was caught. Some individuals on the list of convictions, such as Muntasir al-Jemi, had fled and were still in hiding as of late 2024. The loopholes in the law enforcement system once again raised the big question: would justice truly be fully served? The case is currently under review by the Supreme Court as part of the appeal process, a legal phase that is inevitable in a country with a strict legal system. Abrar's family continues to wait, each day a journey of enduring pain. Even after the trial, something unimaginable happened. The remaining members of Chhatra League found a way to return to BUET as if nothing had ever happened. They came at night, distributing flyers and hanging banners calling for the restoration of the organization. This act was not just brazen, it was a slap in the face of all students, the victim's family, and the justice system itself. The anger surged once again. Students took to the streets once more. They would not allow a group of people who had trampled on someone's life to step foot on campus under the guise of preserving tradition. Once again, BUET had to reimpose a complete ban on all political activities, this time with tighter scrutiny from the public and society. Abrar Fahad's case shocked people not only because of its brutality, but also because of what it represented: the right to speak, the right to dissent, the right to live, all denied just because of a personal Facebook post. And what makes it even harder to bear is that Abrar's enemies were not some distant, dark force, but his very own peers, students at the same school, in the same dormitory, all claiming to be part of the educated youth. Today, the name Abrar is still mentioned in every debate about free speech in Bangladesh. His story has become a lesson, a warning, a symbol of sacrifice. And most importantly, it has become the reason no one can forget. What do you think? Has justice truly been served? Or is this still a journey that's far from over?